So, Alex,
So, Benjamin.
we're back again
Yeah.
for some bloody more podcast.
Yep.
Bloody.
You haven't even uploaded the last one we recorded.
Well, I have by the time this one comes out.
Yeah.
So for us, no, but for them, yes, it is up. So I've been busy. I'll get onto that. I've been doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Getting PlayStation merch.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's run that intro, shall we? So yes, welcome back everyone to On the Spotcast, podcast number 17, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's 17.
Clue.
I think it is, because I think the last one's 16, so I guess this one's 17, unless we've been miscounting the entire time. So yes, welcome back anyway to podcast. No, I meant to On the Spotcast, not to podcast. Today's special topic is all about the Ubisoft showcase, or what was it called? The Ubisoft Forward or something?
Yeah, it's Ubisoft Forward, yeah.
Whatever that, I don't know why they chose that as the name, but it's kind of like, it was like...
I suppose it's looking forward to what's coming out in their game library.
Ubisoft Future.
Yeah.
Are they going to make like a one about retro games where they call it Ubisoft Backwards?
That'd be cool, though. That'd be pretty cool.
I guess it could be. I'd prefer it to call it Ubisoft Rewind, though. I think that'd have a cooler name to it. So yes, anyway, a few days ago on July 14th, I believe it was, Ubisoft Forward held their first sort of big showcase. It's basically kind of like what would have been an E3 show, but because E3 is not happening, they've done it themselves instead. Basically, they've just showcased a bunch of newer games. Some of them are their bigger titles, some of them are the more smaller titles, and they just talked about the games, showed gameplay, trailers, whatever, made some announcements, and Alex and I have both watched it, or both, seen bits of it. We've made notes, and we're going to talk about it today.
I watched the whole thing live, because...
I didn't, because I was talking to Isabel at the time, so I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
But I have watched the summary of it, at least, which I think,
Yeah.
to be fair, it got most of what, the points were. So...
Yeah, like I said to you, like half of it was just really random stuff that no one cared about.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I don't know what random stuff you saw, but there was only, like, I don't know, 3 random things.
There were several like random things and that. I was just like, God, give me my Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, there was some sort of but if they do, that's what they're doing there, isn't it? They know that's what you want to see, so they keep it till last, because then you watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
So they've got they've got you on tap, and they know where you are. They got you hooked. But then
Hook, line, and sinker.
So I've made notes. I've got notes about Watch Dogs Legion. I've actually got the most notes about Watch Dogs Legion more than anything else.
I've got a few notes on Legion based because a YouTuber I watch has played 3 hours of both Legion and Valhalla. I've got notes from his thingy on Legion. I've got a few notes from him for Valhalla, but I've also got more notes from another YouTuber I watch who did a big half an hour long video going over a lot of stuff. For Valhalla that wasn't even in the half an hour demo thing. This is all just stuff that I found from him. And I have a little bit slight spoiler on Far Cry 6, but like I said, very, very little, because there is little out there.
Well, I also have my opinions on Far Cry 6, but I'll be interested to give you what my surprise theories are first, in case they link together and you're going to spoil my surprise theories. Although obviously very much all I've seen is the trailer, so I know very little about it too, but I also have some notes
all
about...
All anyone's seen is the trailer. There's not been any gameplay of Far Cry, it's just been that trailer and a few articles here and there.
Well, basically all I know is Valhalla. I've got a few notes, and I've got some notes about Tom Clancy's Elite Squadron as well.
Yeah.
I call them notes, more rant, but there you go. Anyway, so today's podcast is going to be quite video game centric, quite heavy. So hopefully you guys are up for that. We'll try not to go past the 40-minute mark with this, because there's still a plat chat to come up, and we're just going to talk about the channel and other stuff as well. There are no comments this week, obviously, but there was then last week, really. But yeah, so we're going to talk about... I would like to open up, if it's okay with you, with Watch Dogs Legion.
Okay, that was the first thing they shoot, so that works quite nicely.
Because I guess it's the thing that I've made the most notes about. And let me start out by saying that I thought it looked really good. I wasn't sure about it before I went and watched the showcase, because from what I'd heard about it, I wasn't sure about the gameplay and, the characters and things like that. I'm not sure how it would really work. But now, having seen the gameplay of it and having heard them talk about it a lot more, I'm actually much more up for the idea of it. Let's just start out by talking about London, I think, is the best way. I mean, even you can very much speak on behalf of me as well, that London looked very amazing, didn't it?
Yeah, it looked really good.
It looked beautifully recreated, but also really well incorporated with all the futuristic tech as well. The whole London's landscape, the Tower of London being very prominent in that trailer. I do wonder whether or not they just copied their model across from Syndicate or not. I don't know.
Some reckons they did, but to be fair, Victorian London, semi-futuristic London, still very different.
I would, that particular thing. I mean, Tower of London hasn't changed much since the Victorian time.
Yeah, neither's Big Ben, Parliament, but then you have all this other, like the Shard, for example.
Exactly.
Totally
the Gherkin or whatever it's called was in the background. You see all these things, and so the whole landscape of London looks really well created, and Buckingham Palace, and it really, so many iconic different bits in there that I think just exploring London in that game will be just as much fun as actually doing the other stuff, kind of like it was in Syndicate, but this time you can relate to it more because it's a modern day London setting rather than something that was 200 years ago, which was easy still to relate to, but still a lot harder because you didn't really recognise a lot of it, just parts of it. But these days, they've, it's a really, really accurate recreation of London. And not only that, but graphically, it just looks really, really good as well. Especially
some of the lighting, there was a scene in the video I saw of the dude who played 3 hours of it. He was doing a mission in like a cathedral at night, and how the moonlight coming through the stained glass looked just amazing. It looked really, really good.
I really liked all the, in particular, something that stood out to me was the cobbled streets that went alongside the Tower of London and the River Thames going beside it. Yeah, because it wasn't
Ubisoft always do good worlds.
I mean, it wasn't long ago that I was walking along that with Isabel when she came over here for like the first time, and we walked past the front of Tower of London along that bit alongside the river. So it's quite strange and I think it's going to be very, very interesting just to play in London. Talking less about that and more about how the game seems to me very British.
Well, it would be.
I know that part, but what I mean by that is all the characters and the people you play against and the people you come across are so... They've gone very heavy in on the very, Cockney accent and all the people sort of lies and lies.
Yeah.
Because
they did that bit with Syndicate, didn't they?
That's what I think Canadians and Americans seem to think we sound like. But so yeah, it's very much heavy on that. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, it's so British that you can actually get drunk in that game to the point where the character you get drunk becomes unavailable to play as for a amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. That is very true. And not only that, but I think it's very political as well. I don't know if you caught a lot about that. In the
E3 showcase, they sort of semi-jokingly described it as post-Brexit London. They didn't say anything about that during Ubisoft Forward.
Well,
make of that what you will.
From what I took from it, because the showcase began with their kind of pre-made, little movie sequence.
Yeah.
That was inspired by the game, and they talked a lot about that. About first how they came after immigrants, and then they were going after like journalists, and then they were going after artists, and it came across very, very Brexity to me. Very, very Brexity. I think it's definitely a big inspiration into it. I think it must be. It has to be, really. There's this whole very dystopian future London feel to it, and I think it is definitely going to have some, even if not directly acknowledged, I think it will be in it somewhere, which of course it would be. You couldn't really make a game without trying to go into it a little bit, could you? Obviously, we were introduced to the main enemy faction, which have the most British name in the world. I can't believe they call them Albion. I mean, like, how much more English could you get?
It's not as British as the Blighters, is it? Like,
well, yeah, but then the guy's name who's in charge of it is called Nigel. That much more. There's a army called Albion, led by a guy called Nigel. How much more British could you ask for? I mean, honestly. I mean, the whole thing.
Called Charles.
The whole thing, which I really liked, it seems beautifully ludicrous in the whole of everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The way it plays.
I was really mixed on that, I'll be honest. A lot of, I watched also a live stream. I was watching a live stream of, ones at the same time, and a lot of people, including me, were very mixed on, the sort of tone of both the game and the marketing itself.
I think...
I wish it took itself a bit more seriously. Well, especially if it's going to be quite political and that. If it was more serious, I could actually really go into detail on that. But no, it's a bit of a jolly romp, which...
Well, we all like a good jolly romp every now and again.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. I like the style of it, but I think, we haven't really seen a great deal from it just yet. So, perhaps give it a little bit more time before we start to judge everything. Yeah, character-wise, it's something I'd like to talk about. As obviously, they introduced to us that you can play as, well, anyone, really.
Yeah.
You don't really have a main character like previous games where you play as Aiden Pierce or you played as Marcus in the last one. This time you play as just anyone on the street, and you can profile people with your hacking app and then just play as them if you want, They've made voices for all these people. They've made cutscenes for all these people. It's just the whole thing. I think I really, really want to do a playthrough as an old woman.
You reckon there might be a trophy playing the entire game as an old woman?
But it just looked funny watching an old woman kick someone and tase them and then doing all the little cutscenes. I can just imagine it'd be funnier to do it as an old woman. You know what I mean? It'd be great if you could profile the Queen and play as the Queen. Imagine being the Queen and going around nutting someone and then stealthily breaking in. I guess she wouldn't have to break into the Tower of London, would she? But
Yeah.
Imagine being able to do that. Imagine being able to it's just the characters. First, I wasn't too sure about it when I heard about this ages ago, because I've always been a fan of very character heavy single player stories, which is sort of what I like. So I was a bit concerned that perhaps it might lose some of that. But obviously, it's definitely interesting to me, and I mean, if anything, even if the characters don't live up to what they could live up to, I think definitely it's going to be worth playing it, even just for the fact that it's beautiful recreation of London. And if anything, it's just going to be a great walking simulator to explore London with. If not, on a very basis, that's got one thing excellently right, and that's just the location, which they always get right. But I'm sure the story and everything else is going to be really great as well. And yeah, that is all my notes for Watch Dogs Legion. Yeah. You anything to add?
I'll just sort of give just my brief thoughts on that. Like I said, I'm mixed on the tone of the game and the marketing, but the actual mechanic of playing as all the people and recruiting them, that's really cool. Especially since I found that out that the NPCs, before, when you're like trying to recruit them, and you can sort of stalk them, they'll actually have like full daily routines and that, which is quite a cool bit of detail. And where one of them gets killed, quote unquote killed, they're either hospitalized or arrested, and you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can play as them again. But that time can be shortened depending on if you have people of specific occupations recruited. Like if they get arrested and you have a barrister recruited, that'll shorten the timer. If they get hospitalized and you've got a doctor or paramedic and that'll shorten the timer, which I think is quite cool little detail in that. And I also found out that apparently there's several versions of the story script that's been written. So that to me says, like, depending on which different classes, occupations, whatever characters you choose, the story will actually play out quite different, which is actually quite neat as well.
Do you think we can
general gameplay, like the combat and that, and the shooting, that all looks good. It's just, like I said, just the tone. It's really like hard for me to get behind it when it's just ridiculous.
I think that's the point,
I'm sorry, some of the stuff is just ridiculous. I just couldn't get behind it, despite how inarguably rock solid everything else looks.
I think that's the point, though, in a way. Watch Dogs 1 was quite serious. Watch Dogs 2 kind of took it to another less serious level with Chicago.
Yeah, and then this is just a friggin'
Not Chicago, San Francisco. Why I said Chicago for? I don't know why I said Chicago for. I meant San Francisco. But yeah, I think that's kind of the way it is. It's nice in a way, though, because Ubisoft have a lot of serious titles. So it's nice to see them having a more creative side as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's move on. What would you like to move on to? I mean, obviously Valhalla is the biggest one, but obviously there might be a couple of smaller ones we can chalk off.
Did you want to do Far Cry quick? Because that will be pretty quick.
We can do Far Cry quickly as long as you're willing to let me have my theory put across first in case it is correct.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You go. You go first because I'm interested to hear this.
Let me just give my opinion on it first. To me, it seems like Far Cry 6 is set in dystopian Cuba. That's what I see from it. It seems like they've done their best to create that kind of South American feel. The guy smokes a big cigar. What else do you need?
Yeah.
He's some sort of dictator person. He's angry. The graphics look amazing, as they would anyway, obviously.
Well, it's a CG trailer, but Far Cry's always looked good.
Yeah, but you can almost guarantee us how the cutscenes are going to look anyway, Yeah. Going back and playing Far Cry 5 recently, the cutscenes look almost as good as that, so, But anyway, yeah, my main thing is obviously, it looks like that, but I think, and this might seem like a ludicrous, I don't know, you might agree with this, you might already have this in your mind, but the kid, his son, is it going to turn out to be Vass?
Everyone thinks that. He's even got an identical scar above his right eye.
I know that, but I don't know if
everyone thinks that.
I don't know if they've put that in there deliberately, though, to kind of do that. I don't know.
The only thing in that is that if the kid doesn't have a sister, because remember Citra is Vass's sister. That's the only thing. Unless she, I don't know. Unless they do something really smart like that. So
she could be missing or something.
But
she could be missing.
I don't know.
We don't know. I mean, it depends when this game is set, like in a time-wise, doesn't it? Because we don't know. I mean, we know there's definitely perhaps some little similarity in there, but I don't know.
Well, there was the one said that Far Cry 6 was the franchise going back to its roots in a way, which for many is sort of Far Cry 3. So that would be very on the nose, going back to its roots.
It's hard to say.
It'd be cool though, because one of the things I loved about New Dawn was how it was linked to Far Cry 5 and seeing those characters and those stories and Hope County. Again, that was a big part of why I really liked New Dawn. Yeah.
I haven't actually played New Dawn.
New Dawn's great. New Dawn's really good.
That said, I haven't actually
underrated.
I haven't actually played through Far Cry 3 either, so there you go. I tried to.
You didn't go through 3?
No, I tried to. I got it on I got it on my PS3 and I just kind of did the first couple of missions. I just couldn't really get into it. Don't know why. I mean, it is now on PS4, so maybe one day, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Far Cry for me has never been one that I've ever really managed to get massively stuck into like anything else. Ubisoft. Excuse me. I've always enjoyed the stories and the worlds, but I've never really got lost in it, you know?
Yeah.
Like Assassin's
I
Creed
think
or
them
something
being
like
sort
that.
of separate stories as well, unlike this one long thing, that kind of always kind of like worked against it in a way, which again is why one reason I really like New Dawn is because seeing the Far Cry 5 characters and world and all that again, there's a sense of familiarity there, which I really like.
Apart from the same stupid American turning up through 3 different games.
Yeah.
And doing stupid American stuff. And we all know who we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, this could be the first time that the games are linked, though, if it does turn out to be that, couldn't it? So,
well, second time because New Dawn Far Cry 5, but yeah, it'd be cool if they start connecting the games more.
A lot of people keep saying that New Dawn is kind of almost just like a Far Cry 5 DLC in a way.
It is in the sense it's the same map, but for me it's different enough that it still feels fresh and that. And of course the feel's totally different because it's like post-apocalypse. The story's completely different. It's kind of I don't know how to sort of describe it. It could have been a big, massive DLC thing, but I think it works perfectly alright as a main game. It was like 15 quid cheaper than in most new games, so that worked for it.
Fair enough. So yeah, that was Far Cry 6. I don't know if you've got anything to
add. Well, when you said about the setting post-apocalyptic Cuba, you're not sort of far off. It's set on the island of Yara, which
I didn't say post-apocalyptic. I said dystopian.
Oh,
dystopian. There's no apocalypse in Far Cry 6, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, my bad. That's New Dawn confusing me. It's set on the island of Yara, which is described as a quote-unquote tropical paradise frozen in time. So I don't know whether that sort of thing so they can make like because there's like an old 80s car, but the kid also seemed to have like an iPod.
It is.
So that'd be quite interesting.
It's described as Yara, which is Cuba, but we haven't called it Cuba because that would be wrong, and we get in trouble for trying to be realistic.
Like how Kirat is basically Nepal and Tibet, basically.
And Far Cry 5 is just some sort of redneck racist America.
It's New Montana, but it's Hope County because, again, if they call it New Montana, there'd be controversy.
I'll tell you what, I started playing through Far Cry 5 again last night, and it's already started to mind-fuck me a little bit.
Yeah.
Doesn't take long.
Those people hate the cult. I think they're really effective as a villain.
Well, I think that's kind of the point, isn't it? So yeah,
there's not much on Far Cry 6, apart from, like I said, it's set where it's set. It's going to be the largest map of the franchise so far. It's going to have a very guerrilla fighter like feel in regards to its weapons and equipment, like a gun that fires CDs.
Yeah, well, it's because
you saw the trailer. There's going to be full-on guerrilla warfare.
Well, yeah, it's because of the idea that they don't have access to the outside world, do they? So they have to make weapons kind of almost a bit like almost a little Fallouty, I guess, in a way. With what they can get their hands on.
And sort of final point I've got, it's going to be the first time since Far Cry 4, well, technically Primal, but where the protagonist isn't just this nameless like guy that you can like the rookie or the sergeant or that. He's going to be an actual character called Danny Rojas, who is the leader of the guerrilla fighters.
Wouldn't it be weird if your character turned out to be Vass?
I don't know, earlier this morning, I don't know when it was, but sometime I remember thinking, what if the guerrilla fighter one turned out to be Vass?
Because we haven't seen what he looks like yet, have we?
Yeah, what if the little kid is the protagonist's younger brother or that, and the older one sort of grew up and realised how messed up their father was, and that, they both have the scar and that. But the little kid, they mostly, of course, they just do the little kid because everyone think, oh my god, that'll be Vass. But then it's fine. You find out that you're playing as his older brother who's got an identical scar, and you turn out to be Vass.
That's kind of a bit God of War-esque, actually.
Mind blown.
Because in God of War, and I know this is really broadened, but this just reminded me of what you said of God of War. Because in God of War, the whole idea is I don't know how much you know about it, but the idea is that
I don't know anything about the story much.
Is that Zeus finds out there's a prophecy that a guy with a tattoo that goes across his eye and like all that will, bring an end to the gods.
Yeah.
So, when Kratos is a boy, his brother, who has a scar like that, going around across his eye and around him gets taken away by Athena and Ares because they believe him to be the prophecy child, and they kill, and they do whatever, and that inspires Kratos to get the tattoo that looks like his brother's scar and then fulfill that prophecy anyway. So it almost ends up Zeus kind of creating his own downfall by doing it in the first place, which is kind of what it reminds me of, just the idea of, just because you were talking about scars and things like that, I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
I know it's random, I just kind of wanted to add it in.
That could, I think, also work because Bart was always like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. Like, his father kept putting down all these little, uprisings, hoping that the people would just stop.
Maybe
it didn't. It just got worse and worse.
Maybe it turns out that boy is not actually a boy, but a girl, and it is his sister.
That is it. Oh, oh my God. Like, the bad guys, grooming the daughter to be a boy, grooming Citra to be a boy, to be his successor after Voss completely, just
ran away or something.
Jesus, we are actually making together a really good story here.
Think how all the fan people are going to be annoyed because there's some sort of, transgender person in it again. Oh my God. The fans are going to hate it. Oh no.
We actually created an actually really good story here.
Well, Ubisoft, call us.
Yeah.
Come on, get in touch, yeah?
Yeah.
If this happens, if this comes out and this happens, yeah, we need to release this footage again at the time and say we've called this,
Well, to be fair, by the date this is uploaded, it's months before the game comes out, so we can actually be like, we came up with this months ago, here's the proof.
If it turns out that you're playing as a Vass that ran away from home, adopted a new name, and then is trying to get revenge and save his sister, who her father is trying to force into a man to become his new heir to the throne, then we're there.
I know. The nobody YouTuber who became an overnight hit because he completely guessed Far Cry 6's entire plot.
I actually prefer our version so far, actually.
As I said, we actually just came up with something really potentially interesting that works with Far Cry 3. God.
Well, should we move on to Valhalla?
We should have left Far Cry till last. That would have been a fantastic way.
I might not have thought of it though like that. I might have not come up with that idea.
Yeah.
If I didn't talk about God of War for a while. So anyway, let's move on, shall we?
Yeah.
I just want to briefly touch upon Tom Clancy's Elite Squadron before we move on to our main thing.
Go for it.
It's not Splinter Cell.
Yeah.
Why is it not Splinter Cell, Ubisoft? I don't know. You seem almost obsessed to make everything that isn't Splinter Cell. I mean, you tease us by putting Sam Fisher with Michael Ironside into Ghost Recon Wildlands for DLC. And then you release a mobile game. Come on.
It's like Bethesda when they did a new Diablo, but it was only on phone and no one cared because it was only on phone.
And apparently, I mean, it looks like Sam Fisher's in it, in albeit cartoony style with not Michael Ironside voicing him. Why? Why can't we just have a Splinter Cell? I mean, a Splinter Cell stealth game would come out nicely right now. I don't see why it would be. I mean, I can still see it fitting in quite well.
Splinter Cell's still got a massive fan base.
Absolutely.
Or at least Conviction changed a lot, but I don't think anyone actually flat out hated it. And a lot of people thought Blacklist was a pretty decent step back in the right direction, and they just sort of gave up.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
they're trying to outdo Valve with Far Cry. They're trying to outdo Valve with Half-Life 3 with the amount of blue balls waiting.
It's just. At least like a remaster of the first three would have been nice, like a remaster of Pandora Tomorrow Curse Theory and the first Splinter Cell. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I mean, there's not even an HD version available on PS4. The PS3 had an HD release. If their PS4 had one, I'd be playing it. It'd be good. But there's not even like an HD release, so a remaster would be nice to see. Especially, imagine all the stealth and the darkness and the lighting and modern, tech.
Especially if it was next-gen exclusive. Like a next gen exclusive Splinter Cell would be a pretty nice launch game for you, like launch title game for Ubisoft for the next gen.
It would. Listen, Ubisoft, you bastards. Make our Far Cry 6 story and stop copying our ideas, and then release Splinter Cell, okay?
Ubisoft, here's the deal. We'll give you our Far Cry 6 story if you make Ben a new Splinter Cell.
Yeah, me personally, not for anyone else. Just mine, just my game. Okay? And then we'll let you use our Far Cry 6 story, but we still want 75% of the revenue. Deal or no deal? Get back to us, Ubisoft, and then we'll move on to Assassin's Creed Valhalla before you do.
Yeah.
So, you've probably got the most to talk about. I've only got a few points.
I've got quite a lot for Valhalla, which again is fun. But a lot of it was. I think some of it was shown in like the brief 5-minute gameplay overview thing they did and the 30-minute demo. But a lot of this is stuff from the video of a YouTuber that I watch, who's like a big Assassin's Creed one.
Well, you feel free to open up then, because I haven't got much, and I'll just dip in whenever.
Okay, like I said, it's mostly just a big sort of it's mostly just a big list of things. First one, which is a big, well, I was going to say big change from Origins and Odyssey. Quite a lot of Valhalla is actually changed from Origins and Odyssey. First, very brief thoughts on the game overall. The facial animation especially needs a lot of polish, but considering this is a build from 3 months ago, and we are, like, even now, we're 4 months away from release, we're looking at a build that'll be, like, 7-8 months out of date when the game comes out. So, they could easily polish that. But other than that, I think the game looks good. I think it looks a lot better than Odyssey. It's just because I'm getting more of an Origins vibe from it. There's a weight and a grittiness to the animations, the feel of the game, which Odyssey completely lacked and Origins had, which I really like. And I'm always like, oh, Origins is amazing, which it is. And like stuff that I've got I'll mention later on my notes thing. They're bringing back the Assassin's Creedness to it, which Origins nailed perfectly, in my opinion, the balance between RPG and Assassin's Creed, and Odyssey, through various factors, including Ubisoft Quebec just seemingly hating Assassin's Creed and its fan base, just completely wiped out a lot of that. So what you just ended up with is this RPG with some Assassin's Creed stuff. Whereas with Valhalla, they're wholesale bringing back a lot of Assassin's Creed stuff, which I like Odyssey, but I do wish it had more Assassin's Creedness to it. And Valhalla looks set to be the follow-up to Origins that Odyssey really should have been in that regard.
What it didn't necessarily contain in Assassin's Creed stuff, it definitely developed into the first Civ stuff, though.
Yeah, that is I will say, Odyssey's DLC, both Legacy of the First Blade, I know a lot of people don't like it, but still, and Fate of Atlantis, that stuff that's my favourite things about Odyssey, because it is the full-on Assassin's Creed. Darius, the first use of the hidden blade, seeing all the actual Isu, like all that stuff is awesome. But the base game is very, very light on Assassin's Creed stuff, which, like I say again, I like Odyssey, but I wish it had more of that stuff in, and Valhalla looks set to bring a lot of that back.
I mean, there is a sense, obviously, the fact that it is 200 years before the Creed was even formed, so, you can't really force that much stuff into it.
True, but there was this sort of thing of like, they shouldn't have made a game so far before the Brotherhood's creation, for the very fact that it loses a lot of what makes Assassin's Creed. And again, the Isu stuff and Darius and all the proto-assassins and the Order of the Ancients, which is proto-Templars, and that stuff in the DLC is amazing, because that is Assassin's Creed stuff and that works, and that makes the game automatically better because of it. But again, the base game was so light on Assassin's Creed stuff, they just irked so many people. To this day, I haven't even started my
hear his anger. I can't believe so short.
Hey, I will again. I like Odyssey. I just agree with pretty much everyone's problems with the game. But anyway, enough Odyssey. Valhalla. They're massively overhauling both exploration and the leveling system. In both Origins and Odyssey, as everyone kind of knows, you'd have like all the question marks on the map. Like, you'd go to the question mark and there'd be a thing there. In Valhalla, there's none of that. You only find stuff by actually venturing out into the world yourself.
I did see some question marks on the minimap in the gameplay.
Well, in Valhalla.
Yeah, I saw at the top of the bit where the compass was at the top of the page. There was definitely a couple question marks on there. I swear I saw.
I know
some.
there's of course the viewpoint like logo, but in terms of like the main map and that, I think I got it completely abandoned in it. Instead, what they're going to have is you explore on your compass and your map. There'll be like these little sort of like dots and that will appear. They'll either be yellow for wealth, blue for mysteries, and white for secrets. And like I say, you have to actually venture out into the world, and you'll have one of the three coloured things pop up. And depending on the colour of the blip, there'll be a different thing. Like wealth might be a fort or a camp where you'll get loot, or like blue for mystery, it might be a side quest, or white for secrets might be a hidden boss fight or a tomb, which is, in my opinion, quite a cool little change to exploration. How they're changing the leveling.
I can see that. I'm looking at the gameplay now, just briefly while saying there is gold dots on it. I think what the confusion was is, when you're in Odyssey and Origins and the gold question marks.
Yeah.
I think that's what I thought they were in my head. The special gold question marks, which are the special extra awesome kind of secret places.
Yeah, which is basically what white would be. The white blips would be in Valhalla. And the way they're changing the leveling system, it's no longer like your level increase how much damage you do and how much you take. It seems to be a bit more like Unity or Syndicate, where it's your gear, how upgraded your gear is, and what skills you have determines your sort of power rating, which areas you can go to and that, which significantly reduces all the grinding. Origins didn't. Origins had a little bit, but for me that was fine, because apart from the hidden blade, you pretty much could get away with anything, whereas Odyssey, you have to grind like hell for to enter some of the areas in that game. And
it depends on your playstyle.
Again, it's a really cool change to the leveling system, which I like, and again, it's similar to Unities and Syndicates, which is quite neat. What were you saying?
Well, I said it depends on your playstyle. I quite like the leveling up RPG side of it. I don't mind doing that sort of thing, because I just kind of like it. It's like The Witcher. So.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but I can see why people, especially in Odyssey, didn't so much. Which is, again, things that, because of course, to be really good at stealth, to insta-kill everything in stealth, you had to prioritize assassin damage, or to be really good at combat, you had to prioritize warrior damage, and that means that you're completely screwed in the other play styles, which. Yeah, that's a thing that I didn't mind at the start of Odyssey, but the more and more I played it, the more I'm like, yeah, this needed a lot more work. And that is an old thing they're removing in Valhalla. Like the hidden blade, you'll be able to insta-kill normal enemies with a hidden blade, just easily, and you won't have to prioritize putting XP or skills into assassin damage. You could just insta-kill anyone and everyone with a hidden blade outside of bosses, obviously. But if you manage to stealth your way to a boss and you get the drop on them, you can initiate a QTE, which if you get, you'll be able to insta-kill them, but otherwise, of course, you won't, which is adds a nice little bit of skill, I think, to add to the assassinating. And even if you did get into a fight with bosses, an actual fight with bosses, they won't be damage sponges like they would be in Odyssey if you didn't plow loads and loads of points into sword damage, spear damage, etc. You could, with enough skill and correct timing, you could actually do massive damage to bosses in Valhalla. A bit of footage I saw, this guy was doing a boss in one attack. He took out he was able to take out a third of the guy's health bar, because he just timed his attack timed his dodging and his attack perfectly, which again adds a bit of skill to the combat and makes bosses a lot less of a grind like they could be in Odyssey sometimes. And again, these are two really big changes that I think just improves the RPGness and brings it a bit more back to Origins over Odyssey, which I like. Side quests is also completely different. There'll be some as the mysteries, like I said, which you can find around the world, and these sort of little characters you'll talk to. But most of the side quests will be, again, kind of like in Origins. There'll be these things that branch off from the main stories, like little extensions from the main story, which I didn't mind the side quests in Odyssey. I thought some of them were good, but if they're branching off the main story, they'll of course add a lot because there'll be characters that you know from the main story and add additional depth to the characters of the main story, which is always good. And the characters, and these ones will probably be the ones on your longbow, because your characters on your longbow are actual characters with personalities and their own backstories and stories to tell you, which is also neat. And in the 30-minute gameplay demo, it shows you can even adopt a cat for your longbow, which they dedicated a whole 3 or 4 minutes to for some reason. I don't know why. I just decided to. Another improvement over Odyssey. The dialogue choices, I've said before, is going to be more like Geralt from The Witcher. It's going to be a character, and the choices and decisions are built around the character's personality, instead of Odyssey, where you'd go to a guy, you'd have 3 choices: kill them, let them live, have sex with them, which just those are described as bipolar, and it totally is. Whereas with Valhalla, again, they're making it more consistent with Ivor's pre-established character traits, and there'll also be whole scenes where there aren't no choices or that at all. It'll be just a full-on cutscene with Ivor, which I think will again help him feel like an actual character in a way, if you get what I mean.
Mm.
In terms of the assassins, a lot of this very minor stuff, like horses can actually swim in rivers now, because in Origins and Odyssey they'd throw you off, whereas in this they'll actually swim, which is cool. Eagle vision is back, but known as Odin's sight, because in lore that's what the Scandinavian Hin1/Assassins called it, which again is another thing for the old games.
Surely you could call it Raven vision then.
No, we're not on about the Senu or Icarus. We're actually talking about actual eagle vision.
Well, I know, I'm just saying a good name for it would have been Raven vision, wouldn't it?
It would have been, but again, it's been Odin's sight in the lore for years. I think that's sort of basically, because in Origins and Odyssey, that basically was their equivalent of the eagle vision. But the way they seem to doing it in Valhalla is that that's something different from actual eagle vision. Because you've got the Raven still. We don't know his name, but you've still got the Raven. But you've also got actual classic eagle vision back.
His name.
So I think they're sort of trying to make them do different things now. Whereas before, as far as we knew, Stenu and Icarus, and Connor's daughter as well. If we want to go into expanded lore, Connor has a daughter who has a link with an eagle, the same as Bayek does with Stenu and Cassandra does with Icarus.
Well,
I think they're kind of making that different from eagle vision now. I'm not sure.
Can we name the Raven?
Actual custom name?
Well, yeah. Well,
I don't know. We don't know.
Between me and you now, what would be a good name for the Raven? Do you think? I think maybe
I don't know.
Steve.
If there's a Norse god whose symbol is the raven, I think that would be kind of cool. Because of course Icarus for Odyssey's eagle, that works because that's all Greek mythology thing. But I don't know what it'd be, because we don't. I think by now we knew that Senu was Senu and Icarus was Icarus. Well, we have, as far as I know, we haven't had a name yet for the Raven.
Maybe. Well, I don't know. Let me think. Norse gods. There's quite a lot of different Norse mythology that isn't all necessarily about gods. There's a lot of stuff that is more just about all different kinds of things. Steve.
Yeah. Why not?
I think if there's a choice to name him, I'm definitely going to call him Steve. Just why not? Imagine getting
in memory of your camel from Origins.
Imagine seeing you approaching a fort or something like that, and the message comes up on the screen saying, "Tip: you can use Steve to scan the camp for enemies," and it would be great.
Apparently, because the dude who on my watch played 3 hours of Valhalla, you weren't actually prompted to use the Raven, because you would be in Origins and Odyssey, they'd tell you to actually use it to find your target. But apparently in Valhalla they toned that down a lot.
What would be really good is if, like Fallout 4, when they programmed Codsworth to have all the different names people might choose, over 1,000 different names, It'd be great if they program the voice actors. So if you were to choose the name for Steve, obviously Steve, that Ivor would be able to go, Steve, come here, Steve.
I actually quite like that.
I don't know how he sounds.
I wish they'd done that. I kind of wish now you mentioned it, they'd done that with Phobos in Odyssey, because apart from the colour, that choice, choosing your horse makes zero difference. It'll still be Phobos every time. It'll just be a different colour.
Or Chikaros.
I wish they'd actually done it so the choice actually mattered there. That's actually a good idea you had there.
It'd be good if
I'd go for that. Why not?
It'd be good if you could choose the bird as well. Imagine you could pick what kind
I
of
think
bird
I went for
you wanted.
Raven because that fits North.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I mean, imagine, I'd pick a chicken, and I would definitely have Chikaros back. Because that was one of my favourite parts of That was one of my favourite parts of Odyssey.
Chikaros.
Or the standoff when they're looking into each other and then they just pan.
No one saw that coming. It's just serious Cassandra, serious Fake Eagle Bearer, serious Icarus.
I am gonna miss not hearing Malaka every 5 seconds. Well, she did seem to use it in every sentence.
Yeah, I think someone on the Assassin's Creed Reddit actually tallied up how many times she said it throughout the whole main game and the DLCs.
I think Malaka is used in modern Greek as well, but it's used not necessarily as such a bad word. A lot of the time it gets thrown into conversation just as almost a way to emphasise certain things.
Yeah.
I have Greek people that work where I work, and
thanks to Odyssey, it's now a meme.
But yeah, I mean,
fine. I just had a very few more quick things to do. Like I said, proper Eagle Vision's back, social stealth, actually hiding in crowds, and that's back, which is another core Assassin's Creed thing which Valhalla's bringing back.
Social distancing.
And you can actually completely stealth your way. You can completely stealth your way, like I said, to fort bosses through stealth, which is cool. And if you're able to have your ones spit siege the fort, and you actually sneak through and get them yourself, Shadow of War-esque.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a very, very Assassin's Creed thing, and that'd be just so cool and satisfying to do.
Would you like them to go also Shadow of War-esque and then have maybe you leave your Viking captain in charge of the fort and then they betray you?
Those are ones when when the first details came back, a lot of ones wondered whether that'd be a thing. Because like I said, your actual ones on your longbow, they're actual characters with personalities and backstories. And
as long as they haven't got stupid names,
maybe you can fuck up like that somehow.
As long as they haven't got the stupid names like the orcs do in Shadow of War, and he's not gonna be called fucking Johansson the Dingleberry or something. Because they have a lot of stupid names in that. So
yeah, that game's got a sense of humour. It's very gritty and very dark, but those games with the orcs have definitely got a sense of humour.
Steve, we must go to IKEA.
You're not gonna let that. You're not gonna let that troll. It's final. Just very, very final thing about Valhalla. Darby McDevitt, who's the writer on Revelations, Embers, Black Flag, Valhalla, and narrative director of the franchise, and worked on Origin Story a bit, has been big time teasing massive hidden ones, that's all the ancient presence in the story, a lot of lore. Actually delving into the ideologies of the groups again, which is something that Origins lacked, of course, because it was an origin story, but it still had a nice chunk of that. Odyssey, even in friggin' Legacy and Fate of Atlantis, it didn't really. It was really light-hearted and really basic.
I saw something on Twitter about it because there've been people that have been complaining to them, saying it wasn't very Assassin's Creedy, which I don't mind anyway. But then I saw a tweet from someone at Ubisoft who said, "Yeah, don't worry, there is loads and loads of stuff in there, but we're just keeping it completely."
Yeah, that is probably Darby. And there's also a thing where there was I'll actually after this, I do have it saved on my phone. So after this, if you're interested in the chat, I'll just send you it. There's during one of the they said it was in the demo, but I didn't notice it. There's a guy in Levantine Brotherhood robes, which is the Messiah Brotherhood from Assassin's Creed 1.
Yeah.
Altair's lot.
Yeah.
There's a dude in, I said it's hidden ones, but in 200 years it will be the Assassin Brotherhood. Actual, Brotherhood robes with, his ring finger missing and that. And I'm just how can you look at that and not be Assassin's Creed? Because that is Like Odyssey.
Was
Oh,
he
well, just
part?
sort of.
Was
They'll
he
put
part?
this Assassin's Creed stuff in the DLC. Valhalla. Here's a fucking assassin from Messiah.
Was
There,
he?
there you go.
Was he part of your gang, or was he present in the world
I
somewhere?
The hidden one, well,
He
the
says-
basis of the story for Valhalla, like I think I've said before, is like Black Flag, but replace pirates with Vikings.
So
the hidden
he's
ones
going
will
to
have
become
a
an assassin,
big influence on Ivor and the story, so, it could be either.
So the idea is that they're watching him, and he will become, or she will become, an assassin.
Basically, yeah, you sort of get brought into the, where you sort of end up coming into contact with the hidden ones, and of course their conflict with all the ancients, and you're sort of, ideology in that with the hidden ones sort of, coincide and come together, and that. I definitely, by the end, you will become a full-on hidden one. I think it's pretty much guaranteed that you will become a hidden one. And those ones think they'll even, because they had a Levantine as Brotherhood member, that they'll actually go to Messiah at the end at some point, which I think would be cool.
Let me just pick out. I don't know if you know this is a general question, but what year is this set in?
Well, Valhalla.
Yeah.
It's 8th. We don't know specifically, but it's 8th to 9th century, which is literally 200 to 300 years before Assassin's Creed 1. We are in peak hidden ones and Order of Ancient stuff here.
I think by this point, then we need to stop calling them hidden ones and start calling them assassins again. Because the Assassin's Brotherhood was definitely well established during that time.
I think from what I gather, the Templars become the actual Templars 1130, which is 60 years before Assassin's Creed 1. The Assassin's Brotherhood becomes the Assassin Brotherhood. Stops being hidden ones, becomes Assassin Brotherhood. About, I want to say 50 years before that, or around that time. But so regardless whether it's the Assassins or the hidden ones, Messiah was very much established by this point. So outside of the name, it is pretty much the Assassin Brotherhood, pretty much. I think the tenets are pretty much set in stone. It's just the actual the name change mostly. I know, because we haven't had a lot about the hidden ones and that outside of they become the Assassin Brotherhood.
That's because you can't
see them. In terms of the actual differences, I don't know if there is much between the two. And I have read a lot of stuff on it. I have the fucking essential guide here, a 500-page Bible, essentially, on Assassin's Creed stuff. And I've read a lot on the history of the Assassins and that. We don't actually know a lot of the sort of differences between the hidden ones and the Assassins. Of course, Order of Ancients, Cult of Cosmos, they were pretty different from the Templars. But in terms of hidden ones and Assassins, we don't actually know. Since Origins have had Odyssey, which is years before the hidden ones. So this is the first time we're actually seeing the hidden ones, proper established in that, which is pretty interesting.
Okay. Well, I have one thing to talk about Valhalla before we finish.
Yeah, go for it.
And I want to talk about East Anglia.
Yeah, East Anglia. Yeah, that was quite cool. And actually, they remembered me.
Well, you may have noticed this. Obviously, we live in England, in the east of England, and a lot of the Viking times were set across the east of England and moving into central and slightly to southern England, around this area.
Yeah.
And looking at the in-game map, it had, on the right-hand side from the shape of the map, it had East Anglia, which is the region of England that Alex and I reside in.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see that. It'd be interesting to see if there's because a lot of the places around here where we live and things like that are quite old. Our nearest town, which I will not give the name of away, obviously. Alex, it has a road in it that was made in 1066. So, very old. So I'd be interested to see it if I can, as Ivor, pop to Ipswich and go to Sports Direct.
We know for certain that there's definitely three major cities: London, York, and Winchester. So there's going to be actual, proper established cities among all the uncharted wilderness.
Do you think there's going to be a Sports Direct?
I doubt it. There might be a JD Sports, though.
Might be. So you can get him a tracksuit and make him look like a chav. Steve!
Why not?
Steve, point me to the nearest McDonald's so I can look like a chav.
Is that going to be like a meme until Valhalla comes out?
Well, if I keep proclaiming
and it's like,
Steve.
so Ben, what was your thoughts on Valhalla?
Wow.
It was terrible. I couldn't name anything Steve. There wasn't a single Steve in the game.
I can still think of him as
Steve's
Steve.
out of Steve.
I can think of him as Steve. I can still, I don't have to accept Ubisoft's reality. I can replace it with my own. So yeah. That's all I had to add, really.
I have two quick questions. I've two quick questions for you regarding Valhalla. One, what do you think of the male and female Ivor voices, if you've heard both of them? Because I know in most of the promo stuff it's been the female, but I've also heard the male. And two, which would you going to pick?
Well,
because both are canon, though. But
I don't particularly have an opinion on the voices. I think they both just sound kind of like normal voices, to be honest. I haven't really...
Yeah.
However, I believe this time, in my heart, I want to pick the male version. Now, in the previous two games, because it
fits the Viking fantasy.
Before someone comes up and says, "Oh, you're sexist" or something. In the previous games, I played a lot as Evie in Syndicate, mainly more than Jacob. I played.
Yeah, I did. All my free roam was Evie.
I picked Cassandra, not just because Alexios was badly terrible at doing any kind of emotional voice acting, but apart from anger, of course. But mainly because I liked Cassandra more. I did prefer...
Best voice actor in the entire game, her one, in my opinion. She was the best voice actor in Odyssey.
I did prefer Bayek to Aya.
Aya, yeah.
I never had any affinity.
Hashtag Bayek sequel.
Never had any affinity to Aya. But, so I just feel like Ivor as a guy just suits it better. There's just something about it. I don't want to make it sound like sexist in a sense that maybe the guy should be. Because I know it's not like that, but I just feel like...
Yeah, it might also be because the dude who's voicing male Ivor is one who was in like The Last Kingdom and that, and he's at... Well, both of them are Scandinavian, but this is a dude who like actually played Vikings in like big budget TV for several years.
There's just something about...
he's got actual pedigree for this material.
There's just something about him that I feel like it's more suited to the male role this time round.
I agree with you. Unlike Odyssey, where Alexios was shit and Cassandra was good, both voices I think are good. But I think I'm waiting to see who's on the cover of the novel, because the novel will be the canon events, and then in my head, whoever's on the cover will be canon.
Well, if they put both on there,
to do so. Then I do know they're doing a prequel comic, and from what we've seen, both will be on the cover for that. And in the promos for Valhalla, unlike with Odyssey, where it was all Alexios for some reason, both are prominent. But I'm hoping it's the dude, because like you, I like both, but there's something about male Ivor, and also I'm surprised that he wasn't really like gruff and aggressive and money and all that, like I thought he'd be. He just sounded like a normal dude, which I thought was actually quite nice,
refreshing.
Like especially after gruff Alexios.
That's all he was. Just anger.
Yeah.
And
I'm the guy. Cassandra, no. That is Alexios' entire character.
Can I just please say...
That's all my Valhalla notes. Have you got anything to add about Valhalla?
Just one last thing, and I just want to plead with you. I just want to plead with Ubisoft here, okay? Look.
Okay,
we've already offered you a deal, Ubisoft. And I haven't heard anything back from you yet. We need a Splinter Cell game, okay? So Alex and I are willing to give you a part of the Far Cry 6 story rights that we own.
Yep.
But I also want a guarantee that there isn't going to be a boring discovery mode in Valhalla. With the most boring voiced guy voicing... Oh my god, he had the most annoying voice in Origins. The ancient
There probably will be a
Egyptian
discovery tour, though. That's the thing.
First, they used to take it and they used to pull their brains out of little spoons. And then they did... I just skipped through that. Christ, it was boring as shit.
Everyone only did that for the trophy/achievements and the Senu skin. No one actually did it because they cared.
And we want Splinter Cell, damn it!
I haven't even done Odyssey's one because there's no achievements, trophies, or skins for it.
Listen here, Ubisoft.
There's quizzes in it. Wow. Yay, I have to remember this stuff.
Now, listen here, Ubisoft, if that's your real
Okay,
name.
see, for our Far Cry 6 story, we want a Splinter Cell, we want Ben to be able to name his Raven Steve, and we want no Discovery Tour in Valhalla.
Exactly. And the Splinter Cell game is my personal game, no one else's.
Yeah, no one else can have it.
And we still get 75% of the equity from the race.
Ben leaves in his will for his kids, because they'll be totally unique. He'll be worth a fortune.
Well, Ben Legion can be the name of my YouTube fans, I think.
The Benjamin Legion.
Well, that's not my name.
That's a strong name.
My name's not Benjamin, though, is it? So
it is Benjamin. Shiriam said so.
No, it's not.
Hello,
she can fuck off.
Ben's name is Benjamin, isn't it?
No.
Isn't it,
as her ruling senpai, I decree that my name.
Not her ruling. One of us. She has.
I am wise, and I can provide her advice and counselling. We learnt this last time.
So do I. I do that every day. I do that every day, so I'm way ahead of you, boy.
I'm the senpai. I provide the counselling, and I decree that my name is not Benjamin, and that I want Splinter Cell games. Okay? Now make it happen, Legion. See, I can see that we can overthrow the world. They call it the Great Senpai Wars.
It's a good thing we don't have any comments to talk about.
No, but anyway, you know what? I'm not going to. I don't think we can talk about it. I think we're just over the island, so I think I might leave the Platt chat until next week. I think.
I haven't got anything to add to that. Well, I don't usually. But I haven't got anything to add to that, and I've only been playing Odyssey, so
we'll keep this as our little Ubisoft special. And I'll just say thank you guys for listening to this week's podcast, and please Ubisoft, do take heed, unless you want the legions to arrive at Montreal and Quebec's doorstep and kick the fuckers in. Okay, and yes, as your senpai ruler, I wish you a good day.
As you are the senpai ruler, I say toodles.
Goodbye.
I have expected you. Greetings. Do you know why I live here? Yes. I have been pondering on exactly that question. All in good time. First, a question for you. Imagine but a whisper pushing aside all in its path. What will you burn? What will you spare? Yes. Few could resist such a challenge. You once told me you did not believe in destiny. Do you have no better reason for acting than destiny? Are you nothing but a plaything of fate? Yes. Do not be afraid. Fulfill your destiny. Few could resist such a challenge. Why do you delay? What else would you seek? Go then. Fare thee well. Do not be afraid. Remember well. Power, you have it, but power is inert without action and choice.